walking through Kyoto, just going through all of our different sites. I was actually interested in the different types of textures. Going along, you'll see what I was really interested in. I was really looking at the color, the patterns of things, whether it's hardscape or softscape. That's what really interests me. And I took a lot of pictures of wooden things just because the temples and the shrines were made of wood, and it was interesting seeing which parts were replaced and how when you actually start knocking on them or tapping on them, you can hear a hollowness to them if it's being replaced. It's actually pretty interesting. Different stone formations, those that are carved by hand, and those are just found pieces of shaped rocks and then placed into shapes. And the use of bamboo, this was pretty interesting in the way that how it deteriorates over time, and you see the striations through them a lot clearer through the paint. I was actually really interested in that. Carvings of naturally found stones. And how the wood deteriorates from what it was before, and then as people start touching it over the years, you can just see this gradation. So it's actually really interesting where you see where a lot of people walk by and touch it, and areas where people wouldn't walk by and touch it like this. And how the wood's treated. I'm not sure how they treated the wood by burning it, or it seems like they burned the outside to create a barrier as to not leave raw wood exposed to the weather. But you can see it was pretty interesting seeing the different types of charring. I'm sorry. And again, how the wood deteriorates, splitting and cracking depending on the weather and the climate, the humidity. And see here, you can see the difference between placed stones and or pre-carved stones by hand, and stones that were found and placed into a specific purpose for a walkway. And also interested in how the textures of the moss growing on stones. It was actually it was interesting seeing where they grew or how they grew. This is actually the metal pieces on the temple doors that were rusting, and I found that to be really interesting to see, where the lacquer was, and then how the paint would chip off in a certain pattern, in a certain texture. And then this was actually really interesting as we gotten farther along. I started noticing some of the wood being eaten away. I'm not sure if these were termites or if this was just how the wood deteriorates, this type of wood, but they had these specific holes in there. And then some more moss. Yeah. So again, with the different patterns of the found stones, these weren't carved. So it was interesting seeing. It's something you just walk by or walk over, you really don't notice it. But when you just compare this one with the first one, it's a big difference, but they use it for the same purpose. And this was at the last shrine that we went to, and this was the batching pattern that they use for the roofs. And yeah, this lost. Yes, Carlos.
You saw like the pictures like the texture you took the pictures of, it's only on. Actually, do you touch it? Like actually, how do you feel? And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this feeling interesting, so I took a picture.
Oh no, everything I took a
Or
photo
mostly
of.
you were like, oh, this looks like a nice texture, and take a picture.
Oh no, I actually felt it and I touched it and I knocked on it, and so that's why I was saying with the wood, like the pieces that were taken out and replaced with when it was restored, you hear a hollowness to it, and it's actually interesting because it might they might put a lacquer over it to make it seem like it's one piece, but as you get up closer and you start feeling it, touching it, it's a totally different texture and feeling, even though it's the same shape. And with the moss, it's just some moss is a lot more moist than others, and that's how like this one was a lot more moist, so you can see it's thicker, greener. But then some of the ones that were thinner, they were a lot more dry, and they were light green, and you can see them, they're speckling along. So it was actually through touch and feel and sound that.
You also lost the deer.
Oh yeah, well the deer I was petting it, so softscape. I think I would have.
Why you asked?
I know it was. You didn't have to say like you actually touched.
Yeah, because it could be like
You touched through your.
Through my eyes. I mean, it was something that was interesting that caught my eye, and then I went over there and I then decided to touch it.
Are all these within temple grounds?
Yes. That was like the basic premise of all the shots.
It's hard to see if it's specific to Kyoto, but I'm sure it's all from Kyoto. So it's kind of interesting.
All right, thank you.